Hello, everyone. Welcome to session one of the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation's Tomorrow's Leaders College program. We're just going to wait maybe one more minute to allow everyone to get in here, and then we'll get started. Okay, we'll let everybody else trickle in. Let's do this thing. So, again, welcome to the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation's Tomorrow's Leaders College program. Thank you all for joining us on our virtual stage. We are so happy you're here. This is session one, a peek into the life with CF. Remember, we have a session on Thursday and two more next week on Tuesday and Thursday. You should have received an email with those Zoom links from Caitlin Roberts, so check your inbox for those. My name is Joe Adderley, and I will be your host for this session. I have cystic fibrosis, and alongside three incredible speakers, we will be sharing our unique experiences with CF and how it impacts our lives on a day-to-day basis. We really hope you guys are looking forward to this session, as this is a truly incredible chance to hear from people living with CF. As we get started, I want to encourage everyone here to introduce yourselves in the chat and tell us where you're joining us from. We want to build a community within these sessions, and you guys are a huge part of that. It would be great to hear your name, which school you attend, and your majors. And I see we already have messages coming in the chat, which is great. We're hoping to answer any questions you may have from our speakers, so feel free to use the Q&A feature to submit questions as we go. We'll do our best to get to all of them. Now for some housekeeping and information for all of you attendees. In addition to the digital certificate you will receive upon completing the program, you will have an opportunity to redeem digital badges to showcase your involvement in the program on LinkedIn and in your resumes. There are 3 badges you can earn: networking, advocacy, and leadership. To earn each networking badge, your first step is to introduce yourself in the networking channel on Slack and connect with 5 other attendees via LinkedIn using the profile links shared in the channel. And we'll have further instructions for you before session 4. And again, you'll find those all on Slack. To earn the advocacy badge, you will need to sign up for advocacy alerts using instructions found on cff.org. And for the leadership badge, you will need to contact your local CFF chapter to learn about volunteer opportunities and upcoming CFF events, or get involved with your local Tomorrow's Leaders program for young professionals. Once you've completed all of those tasks, you should email volunteer@cff.org to redeem your badges. Today's session is being recorded, and we would ask you to refer to the community guidelines being dropped into the chat. And quickly, before we really begin, a few reminders. Please be kind, open-minded, and respectful of everyone's opinions and life experiences on this session. Keep all chat discussions confidential and use your real identity. Do not use malicious or offensive speech. And finally, do not ask for or give medical advice. This panel discussion is not intended to be a substitute for medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment recommendations. Do not make any changes to your own treatment plan without first consulting your care team. If you have any technology problems during the session, please email volunteer@cff.org. And now that is all taken care of, we hope these 4 sessions will build your leadership skills while also learning about CF and the intricacies involved that you may not be aware of. We also hope you have become inspired to advocate and take up leadership roles in your community or on your campus with whatever drives you and really whatever you are passionate about. If you are unaware of what CF is exactly, it is a rare genetic disease that causes excess mucus in the lungs. Everyone creates mucus, whether you have cystic fibrosis or not, but the mucus created with CF is thick and sticky, which leads to several problems. One of those can be severe lung damage, as the mucus sits in the lungs over time, and if there's no treatment done, it builds up, and instead of your lungs being full of air, they're full of mucus, which just sounds wrong. This can lead to decreased lung function, lung infections, and frequent hospitalizations. Also, GI issues leading to low weight, shortened life, and the potential to develop other conditions such as CF-related diabetes. CF impacts about 30,000 people in the US and 70,000 people worldwide. My involvement with the CF Foundation is not too extensive. However, I do have cystic fibrosis myself, and I am, of course, aware of the incredible work the foundation does. And I can promise you, this event, all 4 sessions included, are nothing different. 2 years ago, I participated in the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation's Teen Advocacy Day as an advocate, where I was tasked to think about my own CF story and encourage members of Congress to vote on a bill that would help CF patients nationwide. And last summer, I moved from an advocate to an intern, and that was an incredible experience. And if any of you had the opportunity to participate in that, you too will know how special it was and how special every event hosted by the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation are. In short, we got to speak with members of Congress and advocate for the passing of a bill that hoped to address drug developmental market failures and help usher in a new era of antibiotic development. This was an inspirational event that brought perspective to my ability to advocate and spread awareness to CF, which, of course, we all want to do. As you will come to learn as we hear from the speakers we have today, we are representing every stage of life, so to speak, which we hope to give you a perspective of the ways CF impacts our life, whatever stage we are in. So now for my story. I was diagnosed with CF 2 weeks after I was born, and actually in a screening before I was born, doctors noticed a dark patch on my brain that they said could either be Down syndrome or CF. Now, it turned out to be CF, and I've been living with it ever since. I was really sick for the first few years of my life, in and out of hospital constantly before I reached my first birthday. I continued to spend weeks in hospital beds with infections and issues while my friends were in school. I lived in England for 10 years of my life and moved to the United States in 2014. My family and I lived in Florida for 8 years, and I had an amazing childhood. I have played soccer all of my life, or I'll call it football, all of my life. And I always feel that keeping active with the sport and other exercise goals has helped me stay healthy and, more importantly, out of hospital. All in all, my childhood was pretty normal, other than the daily treatments that we are all required to do. Other than routine clinic visits every 3 months, every year, with my CF team, I haven't been hospitalized in over a decade. I'm forever grateful for this and understanding that this is not the case with CF patients globally. Revelations in medications have also played no small part in this, and scientists are continually working to find that elusive cure, with promising and exciting news hitting us every year. Whilst I understand CF is nothing to be hidden or shied away from, I've historically struggled telling my friends and people closest to me about it. Of course, my family and people like coaches know, but I've never felt the need to let my friends know. Maybe because I think they will worry about me and my health, or more likely because I've always been so healthy and haven't seemed outwardly different. I'm definitely changing my ways, however. Participating and speaking about CF at events like this is a huge step towards outreach. I'm currently going into my sophomore year at Appalachian State University in North Carolina, majoring in exercise science with a goal of hopefully attending medical school. My freshman year of college was an incredible experience for me with many lessons learned, and I'm excited for the upcoming semester, which is only 2 weeks away now. And whilst I'm thinking about it, I hope you all had a great summer, and I'd love to know what you did, if you went anywhere, or maybe saw someone you haven't seen for a while. Let us know in the chat. I've seen someone is here with CF in the chat, which is great. College, as we all know, is a changing time for everyone, and entering college can feel like the beginning of the next stage of our lives. Coming into college with CF is no different, and maybe, as you can imagine, that bit more complicated. Treatments are a huge part of CF, and patients are required to keep on top of their own health. When living with parents at home, in high school, middle school, it may be a bit easier to forget your treatments and have them pick up the slack for you. But being on your own in college requires more determination and accountability for your own health. This meant getting up extra early to complete my airway treatments that would help me through the day. Luckily enough, my college has an incredible office that deals with disabilities and accommodations, so I was able to live by myself last year, which I felt was necessary, so I didn't wake up my roommate at 6 a.m. because I think we would have fallen out quite quickly. On that same track, if I ever had to miss class because of an illness or maybe a doctor's visit, I had peace of mind that my professors would be forgiving and accommodating with that fact, given my condition and the records on file. All of these things make the transition to college that little bit easier and provide comfort with so many new moving pieces. In addition to my lung treatments we do every day, we also take many pills, and the last time I counted, I take 19 pills a day. As with any college student, keeping a calendar is my biggest lifeline, as it allows me to incorporate treatments into my classes, along with spending time with friends and making the most of college. I participated in clubs focusing on my major and future goals in the medical field, which have helped me connect with people and friends and really made the college experience that all easier. And if any of you are matriculating into college this coming year, just know, reach out to clubs, things you're passionate about. You'll meet people, you'll find people, and you'll soon find where you belong. So now we're going to transition to our speakers. Our first speaker will be Rachel Kinney. She was diagnosed at 3 months old and has deep involvement with the CF Foundation. I'll let Rachel take it away.
All righty. Thanks, Joe. Hello, everyone. My name is Rachel. I'm 29 years old now. I was diagnosed with CF when I was just a couple months old, after the doctors realized I was wheezing a little bit, and so they decided to test me, and sure enough, it was CF. From then on, my family got super involved in the foundation, so I've been advocating in whatever ways I can. Basically, since I was very little. I believe my first speaking engagement was when my mom brought me up on stage with her for one of her speeches at a CF event, and I tried to steal the mic from her, and so she let me have it, and I decided to just recite my ABCs to the whole crowd. But yeah, I've basically been heavily involved in CF my whole life, and because of that, it's always felt very normal. Like, this is just who I am. These are the things I do. I take 20 plus pills a day and do these extra treatments twice a day that when I was younger could take, an extra 3 hours out of every single day to do the treatments. And it was just normal. That was life. I didn't know anything different. It didn't really bother me. I got super into computers and video games, possibly because my parents needed some way for me to sit still for multiple hours as a child and do my medications. And a computer or video games was a pretty good way to do that. So growing up, I was always super open about having CF. My younger sister, who is 4 years younger than me, also has CF, and it's a 1 in 4 chance for 2 parents who are carriers to have a child with CF. So we got lucky, both of us. So there was just even more normalcy for CF in our lives. All my friends, eventually, you know, if a friend was coming over to my house or got close enough, I'd have to make them wear my vest, which lots of CF people wear a vest that literally shakes you to help clean out all that gunk out of your lungs that Joe mentioned. And it was just kind of a rite of passage with me and my friends. Like, you have to come over and you have to put on the vest. And now we're friends. And like all of that just seems like, you know, pretty happy-go-lucky, and that's how the majority of my young childhood was. My parents were very, very on top of all my medicine and making sure that I was getting up early and doing all my meds before school and then doing them before bed. And it was a pain at times, but it was normal. Then as I started to get older, the nature of CF is that it degrades your body over time. And so when you're young, you may feel like there's very little impact on you, but as you get older, you start to feel it more and more. And towards the end of high school is when I first started to feel that. My doctors saw my lung strength and quality starting to slip a little bit, which is also a normal thing for CF. And what the docs do is decide to send you in for an extended hospital stay for what we call a tune-up, where you stay in the hospital for a week or two or more if you really need it, and just sit there and get pumped full of antibiotics to kill any kind of infection your lungs could possibly be harboring. And so I had my first tune-up, and it was all good, and my lungs got better, and off I was, done with high school and on to the rest of my life. I got accepted at Johns Hopkins University in Baltimore, where I went to undergrad for computer science and later stayed another year for my graduate, also for computer science. And then that was the first time I was on my own and managing my own treatment. And I feel like, as so often happens, as soon as you leave your parents, you start to slack a little bit. Maybe not manage your health as well as you once did. Probably true for anyone, let alone someone with CF. And again, my health started to slip a little bit. But I was very lucky that right as it started to, new medications pioneered by the CF Foundation and everyone involved with the CF Foundation, in this case it was called Symdeko, came out. And I went in for another tune-up. And after another stay, I was doing much better, and it was good. And at that point in my life, I really started to realize, like, okay, you know, I can't take my health for granted. I need to really be working at this and doing what I can to stay as healthy as I can. In college, so in high school, I did lots of soccer, like Joe did, for like 10 years. And in college, I was a member of the varsity Quidditch team at Hopkins. And yes, you heard that right. Quidditch is a thing. You should look up it online. It's totally things. People run around with brooms between their legs. It's co-ed. It's a full contact sport. It's crazy, but very good for CF and staying active. So went through college, as challenging that it is, also balancing all of my medication and all the treatments with all my schooling. That was very intense. And eventually graduated with my master's in computer science. After that, I moved where I am now, here to New York City, to work for Google as a software engineer, where I am now in the Google office. And everything was great, you know, doing well, off on my own, living with my boyfriend, who at that time 2 years, now for like 6 years. And living a life that up until that point, I feel like people with CF didn't really get to have until somewhat recently, usually. But of course, there are exceptions to that, and our next speakers will definitely speak to the varying experiences we all have. But sure enough, the clock keeps ticking for people with CF. And my lung function, despite everything I was doing and working hard to keep my lungs as healthy as possible, again started to slip. And so, like usual, they sent me in for a tune-up, except this time the tune-up didn't really seem to be having the effect that we were hoping for. Stayed, did all the antibiotics. My lung numbers were not coming back up like they had for me in the past. And for the first time, my doctors could not point to a reason why or something wrong that I was doing. In this case, it was just CF, being CF. And that's what happens over time. And that terrified me. And it was the first time that I really truly had to kind of face my own mortality a bit with CF, and really realizing that maybe I'm not doing anything wrong, just CF over time really starts to pull you down. But again, at about that same time, the miracle that is the CF Foundation continued to step in and come in with more amazing medication that has completely revolutionized the lives of everyone with CF who has a mutation of CF that allows them to take it, and that is a drug called Trikafta. And luckily, right again, around the same time where I started to slip, I was able to start taking that new medicine, and it was game changing. Started feeling so much better. It was like, I describe it as my body realizing, holy smokes, this place has been a mess for how long? And doing so much better. And that was maybe 4 years ago. And since then, I have not been in the hospital once. Life has been good. My lungs have been stable. And it's truly amazing to now being out of high school, out of college, and being in a place in my life where I feel like there isn't this specter of CF hanging over me. And, I still have lots of meds to do, still try to stay active, but we're in a different world for CF for most people who are able to take these new medications than one before. And it's full of hope, and it's 100% due to the foundation and all of the incredible work that everyone interacting with the foundation has done, and now that everyone on this call here is participating in, and you all should feel very excited about that. So yeah, that's kind of my life in a nutshell. I am a complete and total open book. So when we get to questions, no matter how personal or direct or whatever, any questions you have, I will absolutely answer them. But that's me.
Thank you, Rachel. That was really good. I personally, from that, I loved how your interest in computers and video games that stemmed from needing to sit and wear your vest, that's turned into your major and your profession. That's just really fascinating to me, how we can have the genesis of something that we carry through all of our life. And as Rachel said, make sure, guys, to get your comments in, get your questions in. We'll be sure to answer them, and I'm sure our speakers will love to answer any questions you have. Now, our next speaker is Kirk. Kirk is a remarkable story. He was a late diagnosis who continues to defy expectations. He is active within the CF Foundation, a congressional captain for his district in Tucson, and a CF ambassador. Kirk.
Thanks, Joe. Well, hello, everyone, and I'm pleased to have been asked to be part of this panel. I'm the old guy in the group. In fact, this year I just turned 71. So my story about CF isn't necessarily day to day, it's decade to decade. I was born in the early 50s, and right away, my parents noticed that I had lots of lung problems. Even my school teachers at the time complained that my coughing in class was often disruptive, and no one knew at the time what was going on. In fact, I didn't find out that I had CF until I was nearly 40 years old. But as a kid, I was often sickly. Before the age of 4, I had battled with measles, mumps, chickenpox, and scarlet fever. By age 5, I was diagnosed with what they just called lung congestion. And my coughing was so disruptive that when I was 11 years old, I was diagnosed with what they called at that time walking pneumonia, and I was told to stay home from school for quite a bit of time. So I spent the year of my 5th grade year at home while doctors tried to figure out what was going on. And they also scheduled me for allergy tests to see if that was what was causing my cough and lung problems. Finally, at age 12, I was scheduled for what was called a bronchoscope, which is where they put a camera to look down deep inside your lungs. The prognosis at that time was that I just had chronic bronchitis. So they put me on a drug that tried to reduce nasal congestion at the time. And in 1965, I was finally given a sweat test, but that proved inconclusive at the time, probably more due to the fact that it was so early in the development of sweat tests that I don't know how sophisticated that they really were at that time. Despite my health and poor lungs, I managed to survive. And Rachel talked about, those of us with CF, the clock is ticking, but for whatever reason, the clock keeps ticking for me. And I think I know why. And that's kind of what I'm going to share with you here today. When I speak to other groups about my CF, I tell people it's a message of hope. And so if you have CF, I know that sometimes we feel like that's a death sentence, and it shouldn't be. And I'm living proof that it isn't. I've enjoyed a relatively good life as a teen and as a young adult. I wasn't active in school sports like Joe was, but I was like Joe in that I tried to stay very active. I did a lot of hiking. I did a lot of backpacking when I was a kid, and tried to do things because I enjoyed the outdoors. I knew I had weak lungs, but I didn't know why at that time. And occasionally when I'd get a flu, it would develop into pneumonia. And several times I had to be admitted to a hospital in order to get IV antibiotics to kill the infection. And to this day, I still carry Pseudomonas in my lungs, which I have not found a way to completely get rid of. It was only when my wife and I decided to try to have children did a doctor in Bozeman, Montana, suspect that my infertility might be due to cystic fibrosis. It was a link I knew nothing about. So he sent me over to Billings, Montana for a sweat test, and I'll never forget that day. It was in 1993. The nurse came out and said, "You need to go back to Bozeman immediately and see your doctor. You should be dead." And that, of course, was pretty upsetting and pretty powerful. At the time, there was talk about having me participate in some drug trials and studies down in Denver. Nothing really ever came of it. And in 2008, I moved from Bozeman, Montana to Tucson to take a job at the University of Arizona. And in 2012, I participated in a CF fundraiser that I happened to see advertised in the news that was out at this place called Old Tucson. And my wife and I just happened to sit down at a table with 6 nurses who were part of a CF clinic there. They encouraged me to come in and see what the clinic could do for me. I had no idea there was a CF clinic. I'd lived 60 years with no treatments, nothing. People told me there was nothing that could be done for people who had CF until I met those nurses. And so since then, I've been a regular visitor to the CF clinic, and they've done wonders for me. Like Rachel, I started out on Symdeko, and I was on that for a couple of years, and then they switched me to another drug called Kalydeco. And just in the last year, I've switched to Trikafta, and I've had the same sort of results that Rachel talked about. I've never felt healthier. I haven't been in the hospital for years now. When I get a flu, it doesn't turn into pneumonia. And the CF clinic there was able to map my genome and identify the specific mutations that cause the CF and help identify the most appropriate treatments for me. My daily routine is that I take the 3 Trikafta pills every day. I also use an inhaler twice a day. I have antibiotics for when I get a cold or flu, because I can tell when it starts to turn into pneumonia. And I use a nebulizer with the antibiotic tobramycin to try to clear out the Pseudomonas in my lungs, which is the cause of many of my lung infections. I've also, because of my age, I feel like I have nothing to lose. I participate in some randomized drug trials in order to help other people who have CF in the future. And more importantly, like Joe and like Rachel, my daily routine involves a lot of physical exercise to try to keep my lungs in shape. I mountain bike. I usually mountain bike about 50 to 100 miles a week. Staying active, my doctors have said, has made a big difference in how they think I've been able to survive this long with CF. So like I said, there is hope, and hope is the message that I hope is one thing that you take away from this today. When I first found out I had CF, I was pretty secretive about it and embarrassed. Kind of like Joe said, I felt like I didn't want to tell my friends because I thought they might treat me differently or feel sorry for me, and you know, use that as an excuse of why I couldn't keep up with them. Yeah, but over time, I've become more open about it, and I think it's because of the work that I've been doing with the CF Foundation. As Joe indicated, I'm an ambassador. I've participated in March on the Hill. I'm involved in Rose Up, and I do the Cycle for Life. I do all these things to try to help raise money for the CF Foundation, but also is a way to talk to my friends and family about my CF. I haven't slowed down, and while I was growing up, because I didn't know I had CF, I fought fires for the Forest Service for 8 years from a helicopter, which probably wasn't the best idea for keeping my lungs clean. I'm a rock climber. I've climbed 44 of the 50 high points in the United States. I was very active in skiing, hiking, and backpacking. And as I said, I continue to be involved with mountain biking to this day. So my life is significantly better because of the CF Foundation, the great strides they've made in coming up with new and better treatments for everybody is something that's helped me live now into my 7th decade. So that's my story, and thanks for listening.
Wow. Thank you, Kirk. That is so inspirational, as are all of our speakers today. I think you talked about medications giving you hope and the work this foundation does giving you hope. I think you've given us all hope with that speech and your words. Okay, so now we will be going into a Q&A. So Chris, do we have any questions?
Yes, we do. First off, I want to make a note that somebody in the chat asked about the Slack channel link. We have posted that in there, so the link is available for anyone there. You should be able to see it. Second, first question up. How do you manage CF while being social in college? So, Kirk, we're going to leave you out of this question, but you can flash back if you want. Joe, Rachel?
Yeah, so let's see. In my experience, I think it really just takes planning and being open with your CF also really helps as far as that goes. Like my traditions when I was younger of like making all my friends try my vest on, I totally brought with me to college. So, all my roommates, they had to wear it. And it was just kind of a fun thing that we did while just hanging around. As far as the medication side of things and fitting everything in, I think that really requires planning ahead and really sticking to that plan. Because like I said, when I first started college, my like freshman, sophomore years, my care and my quality of care absolutely slipped because I was not on top of things, since it was just me managing my health instead of me and my parents and my sister and the whole family there with me. And so for me, it was really making sure that I was able to carve out time, get up, do your meds before class, then go to class, making sure that you always bring enough enzymes or whatever medication you need with you, and then carving out time at the end of the day. Or if you're going out to parties or something and you don't have time between class and whatever you're going to in the evening, just knowing that you have to either really, no matter how late you get back, do it anyway, or make a point the next day to do extra meds, maybe extra aerosols, extra stuff. But it really comes down to discipline, I think, and that's not always easy, but you can do it.
Yeah, I can follow on from that. I think discipline is a huge word in college in general, but also having CF in college, keeping a schedule, you don't want to prioritize not going out, not being social, but your health, I would say probably comes first. And the treatments, I think all of us who have lived with CF for a decent amount of time, we know what works for us. We know the pattern we like. And like I say, that doesn't mean don't do anything social. That doesn't mean miss out on opportunities, but just be aware you're going to have to do treatment, and you may feel consequences from staying up late, and in my case, waking up late and not having the opportunity to do treatments. But like I say, we're all in college. We want to experience what college is, and we don't want to miss out just because we have CF.
Okay, another question, Joe, or for Kirk, I'm sorry. You had a late diagnosis. What you talked about being not being open about it, but what were you feeling emotionally at that point to finally be diagnosed? Was there joy? Was there sadness? What emotions were you feeling at that time when you finally got an answer to?
Yeah, that's a good question. I felt both a mixture of real sadness, but also I said, I can't believe I've lived this long. I mean, after that nurse said I should be dead because my sweat test was off the charts, I thought, man, why am I still here then? What have I been doing that helps me to still be here? But also, yeah, I was pretty upset and sad. I mean, my wife and I were hoping to have children. We ended up adopting as a result of that because we couldn't have kids, which has been great in retrospect. But yeah, it's pretty sad. And I wondered at the time how, I've read this about other people. It wasn't true of me, but I've read that when people find out they have CF, they feel like, well, I'm going to party like it's 1999, to the end, because there's no reason to save any money. There's no reason to think about living a long life. It could be over next year, so I'm going to party hardy and live life right up to the end. And I didn't do that. I said, I'm obstinate enough, I guess, but I said, I'm going to try to beat this thing or outlive it, rather than give up or think that there wasn't much time left to live. And I think that's the the message from the CF research and the drugs are coming up with is that there is the prospect that you'll be able to live a very long, fruitful life, and to not think that things are going to be over very quickly. But initially I was very upset and pretty sad, and I thought, oh, I'm doomed, but obviously I didn't persist with that sense of doom.
Thank you, Kirk. We have one question here. I'm going to put it out there. I don't know if Rachel, Joe, or Kirk, if you have an answer for this. The person that submitted, if we don't have the answer, we will get it to you. I promise you that. So it's, hi panelists. I was wondering how the PASTEUR Act can help with the CF mission and what the specifics of that legislation are. No pressure on anybody, but
I can take a stab at that, because I did the March on the Hill, and it's all a part of the congressional captain stuff that I've been working on. The PASTEUR Act, which has a long acronym, everything has to have an acronym, and I always have to ask people, what the heck's that stand for? I can never remember, but it's not important. The PASTEUR Act is designed to incentivize drug companies to come up with new antibiotics, because those of us with CF often develop an antibiotic resistance because we have to take them so much, or there's certain antibiotics that are so weak that they really don't counter the pneumonia and the other kinds of lung infections that we get. So we constantly need new antibiotics. Well, the PASTEUR Act provides a monetary incentive for drug companies to come up with new antibiotics to counter this antibiotic resistance in all patients, not just CF. It's good for anybody that relies on antibiotics. And it provides a low-cost way of doing that doesn't add to the federal deficit. So that's basically the PASTEUR Act. Maybe Rachel or Joe have other things to add to that. Their understanding of it might be broader than what I've just explained.
I think you've explained it brilliantly. Obviously, that was the topic of the Teen Advocacy Day last year, and yeah, Kirk, you've explained that really well.
Yeah, I learned more just by listening to that.
Kirk gets the gold star.
Yeah. Well, and it's been under consideration for a couple of congressional sessions now. We're trying to get as many sponsors as we can of the legislation so it can be brought in to the House and the Senate. There's two versions, a Senate and a House bill, but this is the year we're putting on the big push to try to get it passed by the Congress. But we'll see.
I'll throw this out to you, Kirk and Rachel and Joe. Staying on that topic, you yourself utilizing your voice to help advance, legislation and other things within the CF Foundation, and they affect you. A lot of college students on this call, can you just kind of give, I'm sure that they know, but just reinforce how important it is to use your voice for those things that matter to you?
I can touch on this broadly. I think, for me, as I mentioned, again, the Teen Advocacy Day, I didn't think I had, I think naturally as single people, we don't think that we have a voice or we can change the big decisions, what really matters. But with Teen Advocacy Day, I was able to see firsthand. I was speaking to members of Congress and people who could make the change, and just reach out. There are organizations for whatever you are passionate about, whatever you want to advocate for and change, whether that's on your campus, there's resources to reach out, the student government, or whatever department you want to change, or you see a difference and you can make something better. There's ways to do that, and don't be discouraged. I saw proof it can happen. You can meet with people you would never think you could interact with, and people who make the difference, and people who have the power to change things. And as Kirk said, this year's the big push. And just if we can see the PASTEUR Act be passed and amazing advancements for antibiotic development, like he says, not just for the CF community, but for everyone, that just shows what individuals can build to and what change we can make.
Good answer, Joe. There was one other question in here, and this too, if we don't have the answers, we will get them out to you. Are there any other bills that you three might be aware of pertaining to CF that that you're aware of that will have an effect on us that we need to be focusing on?
Yeah, there's the Helps Copay Act. It's a companion piece of legislation, right, with the PASTEUR Act that we're pushing this term as well. It's been out there before, but hasn't gotten the traction. And the Helps Copay Act is designed to make sure that health insurance companies don't try to reduce or eliminate the copay that they provide when CF patients seek medical assistance because of pneumonia or hospitalization or other things. We're very much in danger of eliminating some of the support that health insurance companies provide by support to CF people. I know in my case, for instance, I get a lot of financial support to cover the cost of Trikafta, probably like Rachel does too. We get several sources of grants and funds that buy down that cost. So our copay right now is $0, but this Helps Copay Act is designed to maintain that, rather than let the insurance company say, oh, you're getting help from this other group, so we're going to raise your copay. So that's what that legislation's about.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Thank you, Kirk. Rachel, did you have something to add, or are you good?
I think I can't think of anything beyond that as far as specific legislation, but another thing to call out, just in general, could be, and maybe not an issue like in the near term, but as politics changes, there's often, it gets brought up, like the chance or the possibility of different policies changing how pre-existing conditions get handled. And that is always something that just my ears perk right up with someone with CF. Because, oh boy, do we have pre-existing conditions. Always something important to protect.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I'm glad that you made that, because that is a big one for those of us in CF. And I should mention too, with that Helps Copay Act related to that, the medication, that Trikafta that I'm on and that Rachel's on, at least my cost normally, it would be $23,000 a month for that. Yep. As a result, I pay nothing as a copay because I get assistance from the Assistance Fund, from the CF Foundation, Blue Cross Blue Shield, my health provider provides some. So, at $23,000 a month, it would be unaffordable for anybody. So it's very important that, we make sure that this pre-existing conditions thing doesn't kick in, but also any attempt to increase the amount of copays that CF patients have to pay because of help from other sources is unwise.
Excellent points. We got another question for everyone on the panel. You each spoke on how you've made a point of incorporating exercise into your schedules. As someone who struggles with time management, what are some practical tips to make sure I'm exercising enough for lung health? Throw that out to you three.
such a hard thing. No, like I absolutely still struggle to really keep working out and keeping fit in my schedule. So I totally relate. I think what has really, really helped me over the years, and at different times in my life, is one, really keeping to a routine, where it's not just, I remember I need to work out this many times a week, because as long as I have the option to do it tomorrow, that is when I don't do it. And so it's like, no, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, those are the workout days. We do it. That is the plan. Or something like that. Or what really, really helped me in college and before college was making it social. And so, like, this is just one of my social activities. I'm going to go do the fitness thing with my friends. And especially now that I'm out of college, and that's a little bit more intimidating to try and like go make friends that way, as opposed to in college, which is just so perfect for just dropping yourself into a social situation. You're still in college, absolutely take advantage of that as much as you can. But I think giving yourself incentives outside of just, I am exercising and I know it's good for me and that is why I'm exercising, is really, really helpful. Like all of the CF events that involve exercising, like the Cycle for Life that Kirk mentioned and things like that, where you can also like train up for that or make training kind of have a goal in mind as opposed to just doing it for your own health, which never feels like a good enough incentive, even though that's the most important reason. But that's my recommendations.
Yeah, I think in college, obviously I don't know your schedule. I have a really busy college schedule. I take the max credit hours I can. But luckily enough, I'm a morning person. So I run in the mornings. And that's the way that I can get into my day. If you're not a morning person, if you wake up 15 minutes before class, then you really have to, if you want to prioritize your health, then you would have to take something out of your schedule. But like Rachel said, doesn't have to be every day. Absolutely not. 4 out of 7 days is perfectly good. And I think living with CF, we understand the impact and the power that exercise has on us and how it is vitally important to keep our lungs healthy. I think that's enough motivation in itself. So, time management, we've all mentioned our schedules, build it into your schedule. I know it can be tough with classes, clubs, social events with friends and things. But if you really want to do it, I think you can find time. And even if it's 10, 15 minutes, that'll build up, and it's more than nothing. And also, like Rachel said, the CF Foundation provides so many exercise events. There's a hiking event near me in October on the Appalachian Trail. And all of those are exercise, but they also raise money for the foundation. So they really promote activity. Okay, so we're closing in on 8 p.m. Eastern time. I don't know what time it is where you guys are, but let's wrap up the Q&A session. And before we finish, I want to thank our incredible speakers and all of you attendees for joining us for the first session. I'm sure you can appreciate all of the stories today were inspirational, moving, and even I have CF, and I've learned a lot from what Rachel and Kirk have told us. Remember, this is session 1 of 4. Our next session will be on Thursday, August 10th at the same time, 7 p.m. Eastern time. And that session is the history of CF research and what the future holds. Other sessions coming up. I know I can see some of you guys in the chat. Your majors are genetic counseling, biomedical engineering, biology, public health. we have sessions to cater for your interests and your futures as well. That will be really interesting. So with that being said, remember to check the Slack channel for announcements. I believe we had the correct link in the chat now. And stay after this session for the optional networking opportunity where you have the chance to meet and connect with our speakers. You can ask them questions. As they said, they're open to questions and anything you want to know, and to meet your fellow attendees. So with that being said, I believe that's it. I believe you can stay on the call for that optional networking event, and thank you all for joining. Have a good night.